Welcome friends to an Expanse Law video. Today we look at the endocrine enhancement implants. It's a type of black market technology that can be used to enhance someone's abilities in combat. And in the Expanse novels, it's used by Clarissa, or Peaches if you're Amos Burton. And at the end, I will discuss what I'm considering covering in terms of the Expanse law on the channel in the future. So, this implant, as we will refer to it from here, has two parts, the control module and the manufactured glands that are held in the head, abdomen and throat. The implant applies its effects to two parts of the brain and neural pathways with the effect of changing the subject's perception of time. And there is also a synthetic compound that saturates the body systems and lets the implant overproduce hormones. These twin effects give a hyper level of both physical and mental awareness, but only for a limited time and with a high cost. After the stress of this short period, the user can be incapacitated, but this will wear off after around 5 minutes. So let's give an example from the book from Peach's point of view, and there will be a few of these. Her implants were triggered by rubbing her tongue against the roof of her mouth, 2 circles counterclockwise. It was a private movement, invisible, internal, oddly sensual. It was almost as easy as just thinking. The suite of manufactured glands tucked in her throat and head and abdomen squeezed their little bodies empty, pouring complex chemistry into her blood. She shuddered. She could feel conscience and inhibition sliding away like bad dreams. She was fully awake and alive. All the sounds in the room, the roar of street traffic, the muffled cacophony of the gambling decks, Travin's nasty voice, went quieter, as if the cocktail flowing into her had stuffed foam in her ears. Her muscles grew tense and tight. The taste of copper filled her mouth. Time slowed. I just want to go over 2 little points here that I've just picked up on as I've gone through the text. The first thing, I really like the placement of how she activates this implant. It's hidden, no one can see it, even if they could see all of her externally, they could not spot it. And obviously, she can activate it at any moment when she needs it, but nobody will be able to see her do it. It's not like she has to reach up her hand and touch a certain part of her body. It's very discreet and very clever in terms of how it's deployed there. And then I noticed one line. She could feel conscience and inhibition sliding away like bad dreams. Your conscience, that which stops you from doing certain things, set aside, and inhibition, that part of you that maybe feels you can't get up and dance with that girl or boy across the room from you, that is also set aside. So those things have been moved out of the way so that she can fully embrace the violent side of her that is brought on by the activation of these glands and the testosterone, if that's the right word, that will be pumped into her. So I just like those 2 effects, the deployment of the implant and how it mentions that her conscience and inhibition are out of the way. And then she's in full fighting mode. I was a little disappointed how this was shown in the show. As a lover of like action movies like John Wick, I want to see her kicking ass. So let's go over how it's described in the books. It fell to her like the thugs by the couch with the first threat. She moved over to them, gravity's oppressive grip forgotten. She kicked the bodybuilder in the kneecap as he rose, the little beer coaster of bone ripping free of its tendons and sliding up his thigh. His face was a cartoon of surprise and alarm. As he began to crumple, she lifted her other knee, driving it up into his descending larynx. She'd been aiming for his face, throat just as good, she thought, as the cartilage collapsed against her knee. The insect-eyed one lunged for her. He moved quickly, his own body modified somehow. Fused muscular neurons, probably. Something to streamline the long, slow gap when the neurotransmitter floated across these synapses. Something to give him an edge when he was fighting some other thug. His hand fastened on her shoulder, wide, had fingers grabbing at her. She turned in towards him, dropping to pull him down, palm strike to the inside of the elbow to break his power, then both her hands around his wrist, bending it. None of her attacks were conscious or intentional. The movements came flowing out of her hinterbrain that had been freed of restraint and given the time to plan its mayhem. It was no more a martial art than a crocodile taking down a water buffalo was just speed, strength, and a couple billions of survival instinct unleashed, her Tai Chi instructor would have looked away in embarrassment. And two things I really like here. Again, how it's portrayed in this text. It says that she's moving very quickly. Not everything's going according to plan, but with the hindbrain unleashed, she's able to put all of that along with some of her fighting training. And I'm glad they put that in as well, so she's not just doing all these moves without actually having a background knowledge in them. Yes, notice how she's doing it all very quickly because of the extra speed that she has from her perspective, but not from those that she is taking down. And I also like the mention of another type of body modification. I've always loved that sort of thing in science fiction lore. And if any of you have noticed some other bits of this in The Expanse, point it out to me and I'll consider doing a video on that as well in the future, if the suggestions are good and resonate with what I want to do. And I also like how her moves are realistic things, because for all that her body can suddenly move quickly, her body's not being enhanced in terms of its physical ability. So she'd probably break her own arm if she tried to do certain things, but her knowledge of combat combined with limiting what she does to what she can physically do, despite her extra speed of mind and body, I think that makes a lot of sense. That she doesn't, as I said, break her arm when she tries to knock someone out in a way that she wouldn't be able to normally, so why would she be able to do that, even at speed? Though the speed would aid in some of these things as well. And the cost to Clarissa. This is why glandular modifications had never taken root in the military culture. A squad of soldiers without hesitation or doubt, so full of adrenaline they could tear their own muscles and not care, might win battles, but the same fighters curled up and mewling for 5 minutes afterward would lose them again. It was a failed technology, but not an unavailable one. Enough money, enough favours to call in, and enough men of science who have been cured of conscience. It was easy, the easiest part of her plan really. Now the overall effects can be blocked by a chemical inhibitor, and once the implant is in, it can be removed, but the effects on the subject will be worse than keeping it in. If you keep it over time, the glands would deteriorate and start to leak those mentioned synthetic compounds into the subject's bloodstream, giving the subject severe illness and slow death sentence. This effect can be slowed with the blood filtering, and though the implant is illegal, once put in, it can be removed, with the subject giving consent, as there is a body privacy law in place. That's a very interesting little wrinkle. And that is this video about the implant, guys. Now, Expanse on the channel. There will be new ideas in my head that grab me and new videos from time to time, like this one, but it's never going to be as regular as the other videos on the channel. And I've also covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about from the books. In terms of frequency, it just depends how the lore resonates me. Some of it, like 40k, I can find endlessly fascinating. Some of it, like June, hits me very deep. I always love those books, more so later on in life. And so I'm always looking for stuff there. Whereas The Expanse, I guess it's certain parts and certain characters that grab me. That being said, there are a few things that I might be using as leverage, I'll say, to make stuff on in the future. There's a Telltale game set in the world of The Expanse, and if I play that and there's some cool lore there, I can bring you that. There's a comic book series called Dragon Tooth that was on a Kickstarter that I put money behind, and we are a few issues into that. It's written by Andy Diggle, but approved in terms of the story by James S.A. Corey, published by Boom Studios. It's been decent so far, but it's a comic book series which has a monthly release if you don't know. So we're slowly getting there, but I feel I need more of it to come out, and I need to be able to see the bigger picture before I can pick on what lore I might want to bring you here. But I think some of it I will bring. It's set around the time of the creation of the Transport Union. I don't have the books to hand, so I can't remember exactly which books it's set between. But yes, that's another source to draw on. And of course, James S.A. Corey, or the two writers that use that pen name, are working on another science fiction series together. So if I pick that up and it grabs me and I like it, which their writing style and what they've done with Expanse, I think it's pretty likely. I think that will be another source I can use for future videos. I just want to address that with you guys and be honest about how I feel and where I'm coming from. So there will be future videos based on some of those subjects. It just depends what grabs me. Thanks for listening till the end. Drop me a comment down below if you've got anything to say. Don't be shy.